very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, no one out in the country wants these strikes to go ahead. But as I have repeatedly said, even at this 11th hour, they can still be avoided. To do so, it requires ministers to step up and show leadership, to get employers and the unions round the table and address the very serious issues on pay and on cuts to safety and maintenance staff behind this dispute. The entire country is about to be ground to a halt, but instead of intervening to try and stop it, the Secretary of State is washing his hands of any responsibility. On the eve of the biggest rail dispute in a generation taking place on his watch, he has still not lifted a finger to resolve it. Not one meeting, Mr. Speaker. No talks, no discussions, only media interviews and a petition to the Labour Party. This is a grave dereliction of duty. And should these strikes go ahead tomorrow, they will represent a catastrophic failure of leadership. Ministers owe it to all those impacted by this serious disruption to get around the table for last-ditch talks to sort it out and avert this disruption. And if he won't listen to me, Mr. Speaker...
Can you two either go outside or be quiet for a little while? Louise Haigh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If he won't listen to me, Mr. Speaker, he should at least listen to his own colleague, the Honourable Member for Rossendale and Darwen, his own former parliamentary aide. He said yesterday, "I can tell you the only way out of a dispute is via negotiation. I'd call on all parties, including the government, to get around the table because this is going to have a huge negative impact on people's lives." His own MPs and the public know the only way to sort this out is for the member opposite to do his job. But that isn't all, Mr. Speaker. Because this week it was revealed that not only has he been boycotting the talks, he's tied the hands of those at the table. He and his department failed to give the train operating companies, a party to these talks, any mandate to negotiate whatsoever. One source close to the negotiations said, "Without a mandate from government, we can't even address the pay question." Today, the Rail Delivery Group confirmed they hadn't even begun those discussions. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. These talks are a sham because ministers have set them up to fail. It is for the government to settle this dispute. They are integral to these negotiations. They cannot be resolved unless he is at the table. But it is becoming clearer by the day ministers would rather provoke this dispute than lift a finger to resolve it. The same Transport Secretary that just a few short weeks ago was feigning outrage over the disgraceful behaviour of P&O and who is now adopting their playbook. Replacing skilled safety-critical staff with agency workers cannot and must not be an option. So what exactly has changed between the Secretary of State calling on the public to boycott P&O and now that he is suggesting that their behaviour should be legalised? Madam Deputy Speaker, tomorrow we will see unprecedented disruption. We have been clear. We do not want these strikes to happen. Where we are in government, we are doing our job. In Labour-run Wales, a strike by train staff has been avoided. Employers, unions and the government have come together to manage change. That's what any responsible government would be doing right now. Because whether it's today, tomorrow or next week, the only way this dispute will be resolved is with a resolution on pay and job security. The Secretary of State owes it to the hundreds of thousands of workers who depend on our railways and the tens of thousands of workers employed on them to find that deal. Because those rail workers are not the enemy. They are people who showed real bravery during the pandemic to keep our country going, who showed solidarity to make sure other workers kept going into work. Some lost colleagues and friends as a result. They are the very same people the Prime Minister promised a high-wage economy to a year ago before presiding over the biggest fall in living standards since records began. There is still time for the Secretary of State to do the right thing, the brave thing, and show responsibility. Patients, school children, low-paid workers, the entire country needs a resolution, and they will not forgive this government if they do not step in and resolve it. Even now, at this late hour, I urge him, get around the table and do your job.